My goodness, we have made it to episode 20.
Quite the milestone.
It is the milestone. That's like our first big milestone.
Yeah.
You know? Far superior to episode 10 of the Culture and Arts podcast, I'd say.
Yes.
And now we have more listeners, and people actually love us. So, we can say that we are on our 20th episode. It's been what, 3 weeks, 2 weeks since we've recorded or had our last
about 3.
post? Okay.
Yeah.
And there probably are some of you who are wondering, where is the 20th episode? And we had to make you wait for it because, like any celebrity or the most fashionable person at the party, they are fashionably late. And that is what we like to do here on the Culture and Arts podcast. We like to be fashionably late. We like to make you yearn for it, make you wait for it, and make you just want that episode of the Culture and Arts podcast. And then right when you think you're either going to come to that fork in a road and either leave the Culture and Arts podcast or just take the road less traveled and die because you haven't had your fix of Joe and Jason giving you this week's takes on Culture and Arts. Here we are.
Here we are.
With episode 20. Welcome. I am Joe Ruiz, and with me as always is Jason Merle.
How's it going?
Man, I am just doing okay. I'm trying to just make things happen in life, and I'm spending a lot of time, just on the grind, I guess. I haven't given much effort to anything outside of, just work and trying to make things happen, moving and shaking. I feel myself approaching 30, and I'm like, all right, I need to make some decisions now.
Right.
Where am I going to end up? Where's my career? How am I planning for retirement? My youth is slowly happening behind me. Damn you, progression of life. Anyways, what's going on with you?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just been busy with work. Had to take off to Indy for a few days, and so it's been tough for us to get together to do a show. So
yes,
glad we're finally getting it done. Yes,
you had a much simpler answer. I've opted to depress the audience.
Yes,
and you're just like, yeah, life. It's life. So what have you got for us today on the 20th episode? This has got to be big. It's got to be impactful.
Well, to celebrate our 20th episode, I put a list together of things that didn't make it 20 episodes, just to kind of put the accomplishment in perspective.
This is Kim Kardashian's last marriage?
I wasn't sure that was episodes,
Yeah.
But, okay, but...
The way that we do episodes, maybe.
Right.
Staggered a bit.
Some of these are really cool. Some of these, honestly, are a little bit lame. But I thought it was something we could have fun with.
Okay.
One, Cockroach from The Cosby Show. Theo's friend. Only 12 episodes.
Huh.
So we've blown him out of the water.
Right on. We've defeated Cockroach.
Yes, we've defeated Cockroach.
As tricky as those bastards are to defeat.
Yes.
We've done what the glaciers could not do.
Yes. And then, you remember Happy Days?
Yeah.
Chuck Cunningham, the older brother that was mysteriously written out of the show with no explanation.
Okay.
A total of 11 episodes. 2 different actors. So we've beaten Chuck Cunningham, too.
In both of his variations.
Yes. I'm kind of doing these out of order.
That's cool.
The Amazing Spider-Man, the TV show from the 70s.
I thought that TV show was sweet.
14 episodes.
That's all it lasted?
That's all it lasted.
I guess as a kid, I didn't care. I mean, they were all reruns at that point anyway. I just thought it lasted longer than that.
Right. The Ben Stiller Show.
I remember that.
Yeah. 13 episodes.
Wow.
And they've all kind of stayed, in Hollywood and made careers. So.
Yeah. He's done really well for himself.
Mm-hmm. We can actually claim 2 victories over George Clooney.
Really?
Yes, because he was on Roseanne for 11 episodes before he was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And even before that, 19 episodes of The Facts of Life.
19 episodes?
Yes.
So almost to 20.
Almost to 20.
Not quite there. And he's had a great career.
Yeah.
Billionaire, playboy, philanthropist like Tony Stark.
Right.
And now he's married and he's off the market, and all of the women out there are swooning and saying, oh, thought it would never happen.
Mm-hmm. And then,
and now he's moved on from ER to ED. So,
and, Robert Downey Jr.
All right.
He was on Saturday Night Live back in the day. So if you count his run as a cast member and hosting the show, 19 episodes.
Interesting.
Firefly. Big cult following.
Yeah.
14 episodes. Not all of them even made the air.
Really?
Yeah.
That's had a cult following after 14 episodes?
Yes. They even got a movie made.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, it's amazing when just a niche enough group of people like your product, what can happen.
Well, I mean, if 14 episodes is enough for a movie, Hollywood, here we come.
Yeah. Next up, the Culture and Arts Podcast movie. What
The
would that
movie.
even entail? What would be the plot of a Culture and Arts Podcast movie?
I think it would be, similar to, The Social Network.
Yeah?
Not that there was that much drama getting the show off the ground, but...
I feel like it would be more lost in translation,
Yeah.
Be like 20 minutes of Jason selling furniture, 20 minutes of Joe selling radio, and now they're meeting inside of a movie theater to discuss celebrities and weird events.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you could do with that.
Right.
Oh, well, it'd be fun. It'd be fun for the audience. Travis Wyke would watch it. Him and Mr. McDonald would probably buy tickets, and and probably our mothers would buy tickets, so we'd at least have, 4 or 5 tickets somewhere in that vicinity. As long as we mark up the price, we'll compete with a Marvel movie.
Oh, there you go. And then the TV show My So-Called Life back in the 90s.
Claire Danes.
A young Jared Leto
Yep.
was on the show. 19 episodes.
This was pre-30 Seconds to Mars, Jared Leto.
Yes.
And pre-Homeland, Claire Danes.
Yes.
She was still an ugly crier back then.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
And then I think you'll like this one. Freaks and Geeks was on for 18 episodes, but look at the stars that came from that show. James Franco, Seth Rogen, Jason Segel.
Yeah. Yeah. I never watched that show, but when I hear about the people that were in it, I'm like, I love all their movies. Why wouldn't I watch it?
Yeah, I tried to get into it when it was on, and I just never could. And then I remember a few years ago that I think IFC Network ran a marathon of it, and I basically wasted a whole day watching it. I mean, it wasn't a bad show.
A marathon of 18 episodes?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right on. And that was Judd Apatow, wasn't it?
I think so.
I think he was the creator or something. And I was telling you earlier, I'm petitioning him on Twitter. So if you are a Twitter follower of the Cap, or if you follow me or Jason individually, take to the Twitter universe and try to talk Judd Apatow into giving @TheJoeRuiz a part in the movie, because I want to make some quick cash and I want to do it in the entertainment industry. And I told him I'm going to start tweeting him every day until he gives me a small role.
#Joe wants a job.
#Joe wants a job. That's right. So if you at all care about me or this show, make sure that you tweet him and harass him until he gives me a role, because we are on a mission here. Can only do good things for the Cap.
Absolutely. And the last one, this would be my personal favorite. I don't know if you would be as excited as I am. The Office, the British version. 14 episodes. But, obviously it launched a very successful show in America.
Yeah.
Made a star out of Ricky Gervais and put Martin Freeman on the map. Martin Freeman's on Sherlock and in the Hobbit movies. And
yeah. A few other stars came out of that too, right?
it's been
the
a while.
American version.
Oh yeah, the American version. Yeah.
Yeah, let's say there were at least like
it did a
4
lot
or
for
5.
Steve. It did a lot for Steve Carell, obviously.
Yeah. And wasn't Craig Robinson on there at one point?
Craig Robinson was. Yeah.
Yeah. What else is on your mind this week?
Well, there's big superhero news in the superhero movies.
Yeah.
You want to start with Marvel or DC?
Start with Marvel.
Okay, let's start with Marvel. It was announced recently that Robert Downey Jr. will play Tony Stark, Iron Man, in Captain America 3, and they're going to be doing the Civil War storyline. I don't know, you're probably not familiar with Civil War.
Not familiar, no.
Okay, basically what happens in Civil War is the government passes a law that all the superheroes have to register their identity and work for S.H.I.E.L.D., or they'll basically be criminals.
But S.H.I.E.L.D. has been disbanded.
Well, this was before all that happened.
Okay.
So
So
we
they're
don't
going
know
back?
how they'll change that.
Okay.
So basically, there's a group of superheroes that are like, yeah, we're going to follow the law and do it, and there's a group that doesn't.
Captain America obviously being one that follows the law, and Tony Stark being the not.
It's actually the other way around.
Really?
Really.
Interesting.
And I read the Civil War comics when they came out. There was 7 issues, and I was really excited about it as it was happening. The ending was really just a disappointment, though, because it was basically, you know what, guys, we should probably stop fighting. It was really a disappointment. So I'm sure they'll change that. I think the problem with doing a Civil War movie, though, is the main thing that, to me, the coolest part of the Civil War storyline was Spider-Man actually held a press conference to announce that he was joining the pro-registration side and took off his mask and said, "I'm Peter Parker. I've been Spider-Man since I was 15."
Huh.
It was really kind of a holy crap moment.
Yeah.
Okay? Marvel can't do that.
No.
Now there's been talk that they're negotiating with Sony to kind of unite the universes. I don't know what that necessarily means, but
Be nice.
But if you have to take that moment out of Civil War, you're doing a lesser Civil War movie, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other intriguing parts was the Fantastic Four split up into two different sides. And actually, Reed Richards was on the pro-registration side. Sue Storm was on the other side. So it's like husband and wife
Against
on different
each other.
sides. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marvel can't do that either.
Yeah.
Because those rights belong to Fox, and they don't get along.
Yeah. Man, that's interesting. So, with Robert Downey Jr., I guess, opting to be part of the Captain America film, does that decrease the number of movies that he needs to make as the Iron Man character before his commitment is fulfilled?
No, they've actually negotiated a separate deal for this movie.
Okay.
So he's still under contract for Avengers 2 and Avengers 3, and this is like a separate deal. Because actually what I read was, at first they had a very small part for him.
Mm-hmm.
He campaigned to get a bigger role so he could get a bigger payday, and Robert Downey Jr. is the only guy that Marvel is paying really well from these movies. They're notoriously cheap with everybody else.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That surprises me, actually.
Yeah. And so apparently Marvel was so upset with him at one point that they actually wrote him out of the movie.
Huh.
And so, but they've managed to work things out, and apparently there's a clause in his contract that if Captain America 3 outperforms the Winter Soldier, he's going to get a huge payday.
Really?
So,
Yeah, because the Winter Soldier did phenomenal for them.
It did phenomenal. And I guess the thinking is if this one does better, he might be a reason why, so he would...
Right. I mean, that's a logical conclusion, I guess. I mean, he's a big draw. Mm-hmm. People really love Robert Downey Jr., but we'll see. I mean, the Winter Soldier did so well, and it could be one of those things like The Dark Knight, where Heath Ledger was the big draw, and everybody was so, I guess, engaged in what he did with the Joker, that it felt like no matter what they did with the third Christopher Nolan film, it was going to be a disappointment.
Yeah.
Provided the villain or the person playing the villain did not die in advance to the movie being released. And Tom Hardy, I thought, did a great job as Bane. I thought the story was good, but it didn't live up to what the second movie did critically.
I kind of compare it to, Michael Jackson's Thriller. Because, I mean, it was so good that whatever he does next would just fail in comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I guess as a director or as an actor, you just have to choose to do the best that you can and try not to compare yourself. But I think the studios, just speaking from, from a business perspective, they probably don't see it that way.
Right.
It's the money that the film draws and not the best that you have to offer.
Right.
So, interesting stuff. And what's happening over at DC then?
Well, DC announced their movie schedule for the next few years. And we'll give it a quick rundown because the next movie, March of 2016, will be Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Which, yeah, we've been talking about that for a long time.
I would be more excited if Man of Steel was clearly an awesome movie.
Right.
And then a few months after, August of 2016, will be The Suicide Squad, which I'm not super familiar with. It's basically a group of villains that get together, and I think they're doing missions for the government in exchange for lesser prison sentences. Mm-hmm. The only thing that makes me a little bit intrigued is there's rumors they want Jake Gyllenhaal and Will Smith to be in Suicide Squad.
Okay, well that might make it interesting.
It might.
Yeah. Being operative. But, isn't Marvel putting out the Sinister Six the same year?
Well, I mean, it's a Sony movie, but...
Okay.
Yeah, based on Spider-Man villains. I just don't know how well a movie can do if it's just villains.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's tricky.
I mean, it's... look at Maleficent recently. It seemed to do pretty well this summer, but that's in comparison to a summer that didn't have very many Guardians of the Galaxy success stories.
It was really kind of a down year.
Yeah.
And then in June of 2017 will be Wonder Woman.
Which, is her name Gal Gadot?
Yes.
Okay. Just from the picture that was released of her in Wonder Woman costume, I think she looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a good pick for the role, and I would actually be excited to see what she does with it.
And there's been a lot of criticism of her from the internet geeks because, and this is just stupid, she's too skinny.
Seriously?
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to co-sign on that one, I guess.
Yeah, I think she looks amazing in costume.
She looks good. I don't know that I want, despite the whole Amazon thing, I don't know that I want China from WWE fame to be cast as in this role. I want it to be entertaining and aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
I'm probably going to get so much flack for saying that out loud, but it is what it is.
Right. And then in November of 2017, we'll see the first Justice League movie.
Which, that could be cool, again, depending on whether or not Superman, Batman is cool.
Right.
Because I'm assuming they're going to try to do what Marvel's doing. They're going to use all the same characters. So you're eventually going to have an all-star cast.
Right.
Except, the guy they picked to play Clark Kent in Man of Steel seems like a great Superman, seems like a great Clark Kent, but the story wasn't all that.
Right.
And the direction of the film wasn't all that.
Mm-hmm.
And now Ben Affleck is Batman, and even though he kind of looks cool in the bat suit, we're all still kind of skeptic.
Right. It's just, Zack Snyder just makes such dark movies, and I can see where maybe a Justice League movie might work with a serious tone, because like Avengers was all fun and happy, and so maybe a serious tone might be better, but they just go so... You don't necessarily need to be dark to be serious.
You don't need to be too dark.
Yeah.
And what I love about the Avengers film is who they chose to direct it, because it was something that to me was out of left field. Is all of a sudden you have Joss Whedon, right? Mm-hmm. And he's the guy who did Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he's more known for his television. Mm-hmm. And now he's making this huge motion picture blockbuster, biggest movie of that year. And but Zack Snyder, who is he? What did he do prior?
300.
Okay.
And Watchmen,
which were both dark, epic kind of films, and
right.
And I don't know, man. Get the dude who made Chuck or something.
Right.
Just like select somebody who is hungry and probably wants it a bit more, who's not maybe done film before, because formulaically, if that's a word, it worked for the Avengers.
And see, with Joss Whedon, even though he hadn't necessarily done a lot of movies, before he was anybody, he was writing X-Men comics.
Yeah.
So he's going to be respectful to what comic book fans want.
Yeah.
Whereas Zack Snyder's going to make his film his way, everybody be damned, and,
And I didn't mind the dark aspect of it so much as I minded during the action scenes. It felt a little bit like the Bourne Identity 2, where it was so all over the place, and it was just a big mess.
Yeah.
And I'd like to avoid that with the next Superman, Batman film. I think we need to start addressing these property damage issues, because if you're screwing up the whole city while you're creating or defeating this dark villain, who's picking up the pieces?
Well, I've heard, I've read on the internet, so this may be rumor, that part of what happens in Batman versus Superman is apparently the UN tries to get Batman involved to stop Superman because of all the property damage and that sort of thing. And
so they're working it in as an angle.
Apparently they're working it in as an angle.
I think that's smart. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right on.
And I think part of the reason they wanted Ben Affleck, they wanted an older Batman, and he would be more experienced and not, right way for a superhero to act, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, in terms of the damage and dealing with damages, he has quite a bit of PR experience dealing with damage.
Right.
One, because he was engaged to Jennifer Lopez, and two, because of Daredevil.
Right.
So that's I understand the pick.
Yes.
Finally, I understand it. What else?
And then after Justice League in March of 2018 will be The Flash. And that will be played by some guy named Ezra Miller.
Now, why do you think they chose somebody who's not the person that's going to be on the TV series? Why aren't they, like I heard recently, Robert Downey Jr. would like to do a story arc in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on TV.
Well, to me, I think it's better to keep the universes separate.
Really?
Yeah, because to me, the problem with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is any superheroes they bring, any real comic book characters they bring on the show are really not that important. Because any important superhero or supervillain, they're going to save them for the movies because that's where the money is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're seeing like Mockingbird's going to be on the show this year. Well, who cares about Mockingbird?
Yeah, I don't even know who Mockingbird is.
Right. So I think, whereas if they had it completely separate, they could do whatever they wanted.
That's true. But if you've got a guy like Robert Downey Jr. who's like, I'm willing to come be on the show for, 2 or 3 episodes, I think that brings, some sort of appeal
right
to what they're doing, and it adds continuity, which is always good too. So, I would almost be the opposite side and think that they just need to try and engage people with more of those teases or guest appearances from time to time instead of using the second-tier stories. Make the focus completely on the agents. Mm-hmm. Make that story matter. Make everything that's going on in the cinematic universe peripheral. Until there's an opportunity for a guest to come in, it's like pro wrestling. They, occasionally, like a couple weeks ago, The Rock just randomly stopped in and made a random appearance and drew heavy ratings, and the audience was excited about it. But the rest of the year, they know he's not going to be there because he's going to be out making movies. So they have to go forward and create the best TV they can without thinking about all that. But that doesn't mean there shouldn't be an opportunity for him to stop by for the quick pop when he wants to.
Well, I know that Stephen Amell, who plays Arrow on Arrow, he said he wanted to do the Justice League movies, and apparently that I don't think they've actually said who's going to play him, but it doesn't look like that's the direction they're going. Mm-hmm. And but at the same time, they're kind of forming a Justice League on television right before our eyes.
I just want to say in advance, I think the best person, if they're not going to use the guy from the TV show, if they're going to keep those universes separate, they need to make Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy the Green Arrow. Because if you look at pictures of him with the goatee from Sons of Anarchy, and then you put him next to a picture of Oliver Queen, there are a lot of similarities in the look.
I can see that, definitely.
Yeah, that needs to be the guy, and he's a fantastic actor.
Mm-hmm. And then, but Ezra Miller's going to play the Flash, and I haven't seen anything he's in.
I don't know. Oh wait, no, I did see a picture of him. He needs a haircut. Yes,
definitely. I guess the only movie I even heard of was Perks of Being a Wallflower, but that was one of those independent films.
Oh, yeah. No, that was a really good movie.
I
watched it? Yeah, very good movie. And now I didn't make the connection between him being in that movie and the picture I saw. Maybe I can see it. I probably would have preferred like a Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but we'll see. Jury's out.
And then after The Flash, in July of 2018, we'll have Aquaman.
Which I love who they selected for Aquaman.
Yeah, Jason Momoa. He'll make him a tough guy. That's no question about that.
Which Aquaman needs.
Yes.
Aquaman needs an image makeover because, for lack of better words, like superhero loyalists have painted him to be like the pussy of the DC universe.
Yeah, because everybody thinks back to the the Super Friends cartoon.
Yeah.
But there's actually tough versions of him.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we picture as the Super Friends Aquaman.
Mm-hmm. And then after Aquaman, in April of 2019, we will see Shazam.
Shazam!
And the one interesting thing about that is The Rock will be playing a villain.
Black Adam, right?
Yes.
I don't know anything about Shazam. I don't know anything about Black Adam. Jury's out on whether or not that's racist, but I love that The Rock is playing him.
I think it's good for The Rock to play a villain because he's always been the good guy.
Yeah, well, except for in Doom, which is arguably the worst film of his career.
Right. But again with Shazam, a lot of people think back to the 70s TV show, which is real campy and corny.
There was a TV show of Shazam?
Yeah, it was actually, I think it was called Captain Marvel, but they've but it was Shazam, and they've changed the name over, I guess, rights issues. And
Oh, so Captain Marvel was the DC version of Superman. No, that Superman is DC. Who was Captain Marvel supposed to mirror? Wasn't he?
He is largely supposed to mirror Superman.
Okay, so
But I think after the TV show, I think DC acquired the rights to him after the TV show.
okay.
But originally it was kind of more of an independent thing because, Marvel also has a Captain Marvel. So
Right.
So now they've pretty much completely changed the name to just Shazam, which is what the little boy says to turn into the superhero. But,
Oh, it's a little boy?
yeah, it's a little boy who says Shazam. He gets struck by lightning and turns into the superhero.
Okay.
Well, it was a real campy TV show back in the 70s, and
I'd like to see how they're going to make that work. That sounds super cheesy.
they've kind of revamped him, with like the new 52 comics, where he's more of a tough guy, but still it's still a kid that turns into him. So there's a little immaturity in him.
And there hasn't been any word on who's going to play Shazam?
Well, I guess they offered The Rock his choice of either the hero or the villain.
Right.
So, but I haven't heard anything since then. So,
Huh. Okay.
yeah, it's okay. And like I said, that's April 20 of 19, and then June of 2019 would be the second Justice League movie.
Okay.
Which again, that's
So they're mapping this out pretty far in advance.
pretty far.
Now, do you think there's going to be a time, because Marvel's really put the blueprint on things too. They've mapped out where they want to go. Did I read from now until 2025?
Something like that. I think 2028. They're pretty far out there.
So right now, they're, man, you just can't get enough superhero films.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a small number of people who are like, it's all we see during the summer. I'm tired of it. It's been this way since Tobey Maguire. At what point is the market so saturated with superhero content that people lose interest? And will that be a deterrent for the big studios to discontinue the plan that they've put into action?
Well, you got to wonder if we're almost there now.
Yeah.
Because if you look at how good, the Winter Soldier was.
Yeah.
You look at how good X-Men Days of Future Past was.
Yeah.
And we kind of had a disappointing summer with the box office.
Yeah.
Now, Marvel Studios makes Marvel superhero movies, so that's what they're always going to do.
Yep.
Whereas, DC is part of Warner Brothers. They have other things they have to worry about. So
Right.
I think they're more likely to jump ship than Marvel would be. And then two more things on the list here. In April of 2020, there'll be a Cyborg movie.
Okay.
And Cyborg being played by Ray Fisher. I looked him up on IMDb. There was nothing there.
Nothing.
It was his two credits were Cyborg and the Justice League movie. So
Which are upcoming.
right.
I still think The Rock would have been awesome for Cyborg.
I think The Rock would have been a great choice.
Yeah. I wonder why he chose to go the direction that he went. Oh, we'll never know what happens in these damn board meetings.
And then in June of 2020, there'll be a Green Lantern movie.
Okay.
No word on who that's going to be.
We don't know if it's a revamp or if it's going to be a long-awaited Ryan Reynolds sequel.
I would assume we're going to see a revamp.
Okay. I think it's probably a good idea that they
especially since Fox does seem to be getting the Deadpool movie with Ryan Reynolds back on board.
Okay.
So
yeah.
and then at some point, they haven't said when, there'll be another solo Batman movie and a solo Superman movie.
Okay.
But they haven't attached a date to those yet.
They need to probably get somebody else other than Zack Snyder on the Superman stuff, in my opinion.
I mean, at some point, it's like you got to have some of these movies just have a little fun and humor and levity to them. I mean, you just can't have everything just make you want to kill yourself. They're so dark.
I mean, you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, man. Nobody knew who those people were.
Right.
I mean, unless you were an uber nerd, you had no idea who the Guardians were. And yet, that was the biggest selling movie of the summer. Mm-hmm. Still making money.
Yeah.
And why? It was fun, and it was hilarious, and it was enjoyable, and everything about it, from the soundtrack, all the way to the actors and the action. I mean, it's everything. It was fun. So, why wouldn't you try to remake that kind of vibe?
Right.
People want to enjoy going to the movies. I hope. I mean, I realize that the Academy Awards usually go to depressing movies like Schindler's List and The Pianist, but good God, man, save that stuff for the critics.
Yeah.
People want to enjoy themselves when they spend $7 on a movie ticket, $13 on a large soda and popcorn.
Right.
So, yeah,
You know,
make it worth our while.
They'd rather recreate Man of Steel, which, really kind of had mixed reactions.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see Man of Steel remade
Yeah.
and go from there. And I will now start petitioning Zack Snyder on Twitter to quit the franchise. And who is it? Warner Brothers that makes the movie? Who is it? Okay. Then I will ask them to put us in charge as consultants for the upcoming Superman revamp. And we'll see how that goes. You can jump in there, tweet with me, and then I'll ask the audience to do the same. Back us up.
Hey, if we're in charge of Superman, we'll get David back on this show, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be an interesting... We should do that. We should, 2 ideas I've had while we've been talking in this episode is, one, I would like to put every superhero that we can think of on a list. And, you get to form a universe similar to DC, and I get to form something similar to Marvel, or vice versa.
Okay.
And we hold a superhero draft.
Okay.
Okay? So we see who can get, within the confines of an ESPN draft-type setup, the coolest group of superheroes or supervillains.
Okay.
And then the other idea that I would say, now that we've brought David into it, is to have, based on that draft, or even just based on Superman alone, to argue with him how, if we were in charge of the Superman movie, we would create it. Because we would look for a balance of that campy fun and that dark Zack Snyder side to try to make it as mainstream and as enjoyable as possible, while still making it distinct from any sort of Marvel movies. And I think he would probably have some, nostalgia, some Christopher Reeves type stuff that he would want to throw in, but we would have to make it, very, very cautiously so it doesn't end up in Brandon Routh territory.
Well, now that movie, I like Brandon Routh.
Yeah,
I don't think he was the problem with Superman Returns.
No, I don't either. I won't argue that. And even the guy that played Lex Luthor, who was it? Kevin Kline?
Kevin Spacey.
He did a great job.
Yeah,
but the story itself was kind of
they had no story at all.
Yeah, lame. And I didn't think Kate Bosworth was a good Lois.
No.
So, we're about 30 minutes in. We should probably tip the cap, but we'll leave that as food for thought for the audience.
All right.
Who would play the best Lois Lane? How would they like to see the next Superman movie constructed?
David's probably already got a list written down somewhere.
Yeah, we haven't even posted the episode.
Yeah.
And he's, so we should probably invite him on to discuss that. And who would you like to tip the cap to today?
I'm going to tip my cap to The Flash, the TV show.
Okay.
2 episodes in, and I'm completely loving it. They have plans, for some real villains down the road, and there's going to be a crossover episode with Arrow, and I think they're heading in a real good direction.
Now, do you think this is going to be something you have to watch Arrow to fully understand, or because I've never watched Arrow, but I watched the pilot of The Flash. I haven't watched the second episode yet.
I don't think it's going to be a situation where you have to watch both.
Okay.
I think you can watch one or the other, but I think around episode 8, there's going to be basically part 1 of an episode will be on The Flash, and then part 2 would be on Arrow the next night.
Yep.
So they might periodically do that kind of thing, but I don't think it's going to reach a point where you're going to be lost if you don't watch one.
My other concern, as much as I've enjoyed the pilot, is that it will become Smallville. It's obviously it's on the CW, and I've already in just one episode compared the girl that he's in love with, his best friend, made comparisons with her and Chloe Sullivan. They both have a similar best friend quirkiness about them. I don't know. I don't want it to become Smallville.
I understand that, and I don't want it to become Smallville either, but I think this is a spin-off of Arrow. Arrow is a darker show, and so they are trying to keep Flash a little bit more happy and light. So, and I think if they're trying to avoid becoming dark, I think it'll be easy to avoid becoming Smallville, because Smallville was really dark at times.
Yes, it was. But I'm more worried about the network than anything, because they have a habit of taking an otherwise good show and just strangling the life out of it. You know, I'm experiencing that with Supernatural right now. It's on the same network, and I'll tell you, it's just like it's run its course, and they keep going, and they keep going, and they keep going. They got to stop putting Energizer batteries behind these TV shows. You know, that's why I love, and so maybe I'll tip my cap to American Horror Story. So far, this season's been awful. I didn't care so much for last season. But what I love is that every season is different, and every season has promise, because it's a new story. Even if it's the same actors playing different characters, you know, you're like, oh, I really like that concept. I'm going to come back and watch it. But it's not beating a dead horse.
Right.
So, I don't know. I guess I'd like to see more shows go that route. Okay. And I think it would add some variety for the actors and a little bit more of a challenge, and I think that would add incentive to stick around and make it mean something. Yeah. With that said, 36 minutes in, and it will obviously be a little bit shorter, closer to a half hour by the time I get done editing some of my ums and ahs. Yes, just pulled the curtain behind the cap. I do that from time to time. And Jason, any final words?
No, I think we're good.
Right on. For episode 20 of the Culture and Arts Podcast, you're welcome. We tip the cap to you.